Welcome back again to the Bad, the Ugly podcast. I'm here with the great Janet Hill. And you're going to let me say great this time. I said amazing before. You are great because you're, as I've learned, you were the only female head of the Metropolitan Police, Black Police Officers Association. Did you want to go for the national one?
Yeah, I was national president from 2015 to 2017.
And so, so now that makes sense. So from 2015 to 2021...
2013.
No, but I'm going to add them all together.
Okay.
Yeah, so from 2015 you were, that makes it what are we in 2024 now? That would have been 20 years now. 18, 17 years you were in charge?
No.
I mean, across the board. So were you the national and then you continued at the same time? Or was there a gap between you being the Met Police's?
No, so what happened, I became chair locally in the Met in 2013.
Yeah.
And then in 2015, I was the president and chair. So I was president nationally and still local chair for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then after that 2 years, I went back to just being the chair of the London Met.
So you weren't there at the same time?
I was, between 2015 and 2017. Yeah.
So what does that job entail?
Both jobs were very similar. If you think about it, the Met is the largest police force within England and Wales. And similarly, the membership is the largest. So in terms of the national, if you're the chair of Met, and I think West Mids and I want to say Manchester, Greater Manchester, have similar, where that if you are part of the national, then you have you have 2 votes because of the size of your police service. But for the Met, we had a reserved seat on the executive. So alongside the national president, the Met would have a reserved seat. So we always have a stakehold within the national executive of the BPA.
Sound pretty powerful.
Yeah. So, I mean, the job is very political, if I'm honest.
Isn't the job supposed to be not like the opposite? They continue to talk about it in the media.
Politics eases into everything, and it's difficult to keep it out. So, you know, it became very political. I mean, it was my full-time role, so I wasn't doing anything else.
That's wild, because when you listen to the average officer, they continuously say, if you go on Twitter/X, people, and I've seen you talk with people who've seen it, people consistently say it shouldn't be politicized. All of the SLT are all in the pockets of the the mayor or the whatever party is in control at the time. But it's like just speaking to you now makes me understand that you've got no choice, but it has to be political.
Yeah, it's just you become a senior leader just by taking on the role because of the people that you're engaging with. So at the national level, you are engaging with, key political figures, from the Home Office. So you have the Home Secretary that, you'd be engaging with, meeting with. And then, it's unavoidable. And then similarly, locally, you've got local MPs that you will be... So, you're crossing that line all the time.
That's wild. Because did you bump heads with SLT members that were above you because of the position that you held nationally? Do you get what I'm saying? So because you were the president nationally, you would have to meet the Home Secretary, and then you've got a chief superintendent who outranks you. You made it to sergeant. Did you go above sergeant?
No, I was a detective sergeant. Yeah.
Okay, so you were DS. There you go. So when you get to the chief supers, did you ever have any issues?
I didn't have the issue. I think the people that encountered me...
Were there issues? Did they have issues with you?
I think their issues is more about, they call it arcing. So from a local level, what they say is that as a lower rank, so a PC, sergeant, inspector even,
Yeah.
when you arc around the ranks, so when you go around the ranks to, senior leadership, then it's frowned upon. And that was the main...
They really don't like that, do they?
No, they don't. You've got to go through...
Even down to emails.
Yeah. Anything. But that's what they disliked more. But I was actively encouraged by senior leadership, by the commissioner and others to directly speak to them. And if I didn't, they would be looking, well, why aren't you? Do you know what I mean? So for people that didn't know, it was their problem. For me, it was everyday business.
So for me, I've done that loads of times. I just email the commissioner and then do you want to come on my show? And Stephen House came on the show and everyone was like, oh, how did you do that? And I asked him.
Yeah, come on.
I just got past his staff though. That's the most difficult one.
Yeah, you've got the gatekeepers.
And once you can get them out of the way, then you're like, you can just talk to them.
Yeah.
I think more officers need to have that kind of confidence because they don't internally, as you'll know, the message is no, you must go through the rank system. You must speak to me first, and it's just like, why?
Yeah.
Who are you? You can't help me.
But it's funny that you ask me the question about obviously the rank side of things when actually the Federation, who holds similar positions, remember, Federation only takes you up to inspector rank. Yeah,
didn't know that.
And a lot of the chairs for the Federation are PCs.
Oh. Is it?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because the PC rank is the biggest rank. So in terms of voting, you're gonna get them voting for one of their own effectively. Right. But the Federation only takes you up to the rank of inspector. So they are indeed again operating at a higher level in terms of, and it's about the influence. It's about the influence you bring from your membership, trying to get their issues to the forefront. Because they do, well, I would say I do the same as them, but just in a different way. So I said they're looking at the rights of police officers. I was looking at supporting officers and staff from who had an ethnic background. They could be African Caribbean, they could be Asian, they could be whatever. If they were a member, then we were supporting them.
How come they do the Asians? I don't like to say Asians as such. That does exactly what I hate doing, clumping people together. But you have the BPA, which represents the Asian community as well. How come there wasn't? There was one. They had their own separate one. Did they combine? Did we combine, or was it initially the inception was Black and Asian?
Yeah, so the inception was Black and Asian. That's the way it was started off. But for some reason, the Met dropped the Asian aspect and just did use the political term Black.
It was the Met that just dropped that part of them.
Yeah, so West Mids are still Black and Asian.
Yeah, because it's really
they
confusing.
Call themselves,
yeah, it's super confusing because it just makes you wonder. Wait a second, because you always get that in the background whenever you go onto the internet or anywhere, you'll hear white officers say, "Well, where's my one?" and blah 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 blah. And we don't get our own one. It's like, well, actually, if you understood, it's actually Black and Asian. But regardless, the argument's still the same. Of why did you get to have your own little club? And it's just like.
So when white officers or white people say that to me in terms of, why have you got your own sort of association? And I goes, well, you've got the Federation.
I mean, yeah.
Because it is basically influenced by white men.
So this is the question before. Do we need our own Federation? I feel that we do, in that I don't think we're represented or not understood by the Federation.
You need a Federation that understands it's there to represent all officers, regardless of their ethnic background, gender, or any ethnicity. Well, any sort of.
But what if they don't understand? Because it's nuanced, being Black, Asian, Chinese, whatever, Pakistani, Tamil, you can go as deep as you want, it's nuanced.
Yeah.
So they're not going to understand. If someone was to ask me how it felt to be a traveller, a Roma traveller, I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah, but so what would you do about it? That's the key thing. If you don't know, then you would have...
I'll go research. I mean, yeah.
No,
me
but you would
personally,
bring
I'll research
people
all
on
something,
board that do know and therefore have a stake in the decision making around the issues that will impact on those individuals.
But you need that right across the board. So you wouldn't
Yeah,
need
you
just one. And to me, that doesn't happen that's not happening in the Fed, in the sense that if you look at when you need a Fed rep, it's like, okay, cool, I may want someone that's black. I may want a black female that is from, I don't know, just say Africa. Nigeria, well, I'm being super specific now, but understands like the African culture as such, or is from Africa, to be honest. Is there any? No, I can tell you. There may be one, but I don't think she is. I'll be guessing, and I think that's necessary because it's not in the Fed. I'm stuck here, and they're not understanding the issues that you go through. So what they're looking at, what I find is they may look at it from a perspective of only their understanding and their experience or their cultural understanding. So they'll be like, "Oh, that's not racist," and it's like, "No, it is."
Yeah, but you've got the same issue within policing. You've got the same issue within the senior leadership. It's not reflective of its communities, and it's not reflective of the African, Caribbean, Asian officers and staff within their own organisation.
Yeah.
The Federation is no different. Yeah, they need to change. They need to understand that diversity at its heights actually gives more to an organisation in terms of the diverse thinking and what they can bring to the table. At the end of the day, if you've got autonomy in terms of you're white, you're male, then actually that's what you're going to be looking for. So as a member of the Federation, then you're the people with the power in order to change it, and that's how it needs to be changed.
Yeah.
You need to put your people, or encourage people to stand for election, and then get people to vote for them.
That's a big problem in itself, getting people to stand and getting people to
do
anything.
So
really.
Is the problem then really with the Federation, or is it with us?
I mean,
not wanting to do that.
I think it's both.
But you're right. So there needs to be encouragement. There needs to be an understanding of what it's like to do that role, because people are quite fearful, or they think they've got too much to do, but they don't really know what they have to do. So there needs to be that attraction that obviously the Federation and the organisation can put in place to encourage people to want to have a look over the wall and see what's happening and get involved. But if there isn't that, then why are people going to change their mindsets to want to try and get involved in something? So you're right, they do need to do more in that space.
Okay, next question. What do you think, if any, Sir Mark Rowley is doing right or wrong right now as Commissioner?
Do you know what? Since retiring, to be fair, I kind of dabble in and out of policing. But to be honest with you, I'm still declimatising from having survived 30 years in policing. I've got friends, colleagues that have done a similar amount of time to me, who happen to be white, who won't be traumatised by having done 30 years in policing. Do you know what I mean? But I was traumatised by it, if I'm honest. And I'm, 2021, well, now 2024, so we're going into my third year of retirement, when actually I'm just decompressing from having been at the forefront of policing in terms of influencing around decision making. So in terms of what Sir Mark Rowley is doing right or wrong, it's for me, he's the commissioner. He's got a lot of decision making to do. He is in charge of one of the biggest police forces in England and Wales. The biggest police force in England and Wales. What I will say that basically pricked my ears up was the Baroness Casey review. And regardless of what, in my mind, I thought, here we go.
Wasn't him.
No, but I thought, here we go. we've got another person coming in to review policing. We've had numerous reviews. Everyone goes back to Macpherson, but then you can go back as far as the 80s with Scarman.
Yeah.
So for me, Scarman was the sort of like one that kind of brought the changes legislatively around policing. So that's when PACE was introduced. They got rid of the police regs, which they were working to, and we got the introduction of PACE. Police and Criminal Evidence Act. Police and
Criminal Evidence Act. Yeah.
Seriously, brain fog. Yeah. But so for me, you can go back as far as then, and when you read that review, he literally was at the point of saying at that time, back in the 80s, that the police were institutionally racist. However, he held back from that.
Yeah.
Okay? And it didn't really come back into play until we got Macpherson. And then when Baroness Casey came with her review, I just thought, here we go. It's going to be sort of like flogged over. Yeah. And fluffy and not really telling us. But it was powerful. It was hard hitting. I was surprised beyond belief that she was able to get to the root causes of the issues that the Met was having, and more importantly, called the Met out for being institutional racist, but along with being
the Commissioner doesn't agree,
misogynistic, homophobic, all of the isms. She basically said they were. And yes, for me, if Sir Mark Rowley wanted to come in and do something different, be seen as someone that actually was really looking to engage with communities, then he would have got his head around the fact that actually we are still, or the Met are still, in the same position as they were in the 80s. And for me, for him to acknowledge the definition, and then say, actually, like Sir Bernard said, if people think we are, then we are. We probably are. But for him to say no, he doesn't agree with it for the reasons that he doesn't agree with it, because individual officers will think that they're racist. That's not what the definition alludes to. He's an intelligent man.
There's many different definitions, and it can be confused with people. To me, I gave him a chance. I didn't defend him. I just didn't come out and just jump on his back like a lot of people were doing in online. I got a lot of heat for that. But then he let himself down by just take it. It's not, and it wasn't even. It's not you. You didn't do it, so you can just be like, yeah, cool. That wasn't me. That was them, and it would have been fine. But because he did that, I was like, oh, you dropped the ball. To me personally, he dropped it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah. So for me, he massively let himself down, and he could have taken advantage of the opportunity that he had at hand. And it doesn't help what weeks after, other commissioners were coming out, or chief officers were coming out saying, oh yeah, we're introducing you racist as well. No, that's fine. Yeah, no problem. We'll fix it. And it's just left him on his own little island, and all the others are going, I'm gonna go that way. If I just say yes, everyone was like, oh my God, it's gonna break down, it's gonna fall down, you're gonna have riots, you're gonna have all these officers leaving. Nah, it's just continued on the next day, the next day, the next day. People forget, people no longer really care. It's in the news for a week. Yeah.
But that's what he's relied upon in terms of not saying it. You're right. I genuinely think he's missed a trick in terms of actually people, you acknowledging it, because the next question people will ask is, well, what are you going to do about it? And actually there's a lot there that they can do and are doing, but actually no one gives a toss, because actually they don't believe you. Because you can actively deny that institutional racism exists, but then say that you're doing stuff in terms of the race action plan, which actually, from what I hear from colleagues that are still serving, there's very little action. Yeah. Very little action.
Yeah, there's I don't know. Progress seems slow because how long was it? It's been over a year since.
It was after the George Floyd murder.
But didn't they just make a whole new group of people? There was, because they made a whole new. I was looking on X, and there's someone I follow. I can't remember her name. I'm not going to butcher it.
Yeah.
But they made a new group of people to facilitate it going through. Blah blah blah. And I was just like, oh, here we go again. So basically, it's made no headway, and you need someone to drive it forward a little bit more. But yeah, Mohammedari's the head of it, no?
Yeah, but what you've got are people that are just kicking a can down the road. Do you know what I mean? Literally, there is loads of words, loads of things. Yeah, we're doing this, but is that being felt by the people that race discrimination is impacting on, both in our communities and internally? No, it's not being felt.
Yeah, in the community, it's horrible.
It's not being felt
in this area. I was going to segue onto the officer that recently been charged
for
in Croydon, the woman off the bus in Croydon.
Oh yes.
That's only going to make tensions even worse.
The only reason why a lot of this stuff is coming to the forefront is because of social media, is because people will record it, is because people will now have the voice to challenge it. Before, when we were saying all of these things were happening, no one believed us. Now there is actual visual evidence of, listen, this is the way we are being treated for no good reason other than the fact that you see the colour of our skin first before you see the fact that what's gone on. And we're always again demonised for being black, in terms of is a stereotype that goes with being black that says that we are wrong-uns basically, and that's what they deal with. That's how they deal with us.
Okay. Question: what are your views on the DPS? I have mine. I've actually said them so many times. Have you had any experiences? Because I want to know, because I don't think everyone would have had a bad experience with the DPS. Some people have had none at all. And I don't think that they're necessarily racist. I think they're introducing racist, the whole. Sorry.
So I'm sitting there thinking, I know what DPS is, but what is the wording? What
Directorate of Professional Standards.
Professional Standards, because they have PCUs nationally.
No more. Well, from my understanding, they've been amalgamated into the DPS.
Oh, okay. So so nationally, they've got their own.
Well, I know in the Met it's like that.
Yeah, they've been amalgamated, but nationally, I think they sort of use it differently. So Director of Professional Standards, they're called PCUs for Professional Standard Units, whatever. So so again,
let me say this. So Mark Riley, a commissioner, he had a really good opportunity to show his reform, because if you actually look at what he did, he said, well, investigations are taking too long, so I need to get more officers on the DPS. So I'm going to drag more officers, DCs, TDCs, whatever. I'm going to put them on the DPS, which is something he could have championed and said, hey, look what I did to lower the investigation timing and implement and affect positively the negative effect that's happening to the black officers in the Metropolitan Police. But instead, because he doesn't actually believe in institutional racism as such, he can't use that as something pro that he's done. I personally really I have disdain for the DPS. I think they are horrible people, and I think that they should all be fired and sent away to Valhalla. But probably not Valhalla. But anyway, you know what I mean. But I just wanted to know if you had any experiences, because I've only heard negative ones. So it would be nice to hear positive ones.
Yeah. So just in terms of what they do, they're there to investigate police officers and staff around misconduct matters and allegations of misconduct matters. Again, I think the makeup of the department doesn't necessarily reflect the officers and staff and communities that are part of that, the ethnicity, the ethnic background, and therefore the decision making that they come to understanding racism. We have a lived experience of experiencing racism, which A white person will never know, will never understand. They'll never be able to walk in my shoes. Similarly, if you're a woman, they will not be able, unless you are a woman in that department, investigating allegations of misogyny and sexism, then you're not going to understand how that feels for me as a woman. And this is the problem. What they apply is a blanket sort of policy to their investigation.
Yes.
And part of that will be them not understanding the nuances of being discriminated against. The fact that someone has used the N-word or someone has made a derogatory comment and how that impacts on you. And therefore, the investigation, similarly to complaints from communities around being stopped and searched and saying racism was a factor, again, those complaints amount to probably less than 1% of the complaints that are sent in that are found in favour of the person making the complaint. So ultimately, there is a flaw in terms of the makeup of DPS,
Yep.
which doesn't understand the nuances of discrimination, and in particularly around racism.
I think they just don't care at this point, because I've made this point so many times, and they like, there are intelligent people in the Met, so this will be known. You can see it in the figures. And I spoke to what's her name, the mayor of policing. I know it's Sadiq Khan,
Deputy Mayor Sophie Linden. Yeah.
So Sophie Linden, I asked her at the where was I? The mayor's question time, something like that. I asked Sadiq Khan. I said, "What are you going to do about the disproportionality in the investigations with the black officers?" And Sophie Linden said, "Well, actually, if you look at the outcome of the investigations, they are quite fair. So they come out quite balanced." But the disproportionality comes with the actual investigations. So that clearly shows you that there is a flaw in the mechanism of investigating and the allegations, that they can't seem to filter out why so many black people are getting accused of stuff and so little, or it's not an equal number because 81% more likely, and so many or so less white officers are. And it's like, well, there's more white officers, like 93%, and the rest are everyone else.
Yeah.
Then can you not see the issue here? It's clearly because we're not all bad.
Yeah.
We're not all bad.
Inherently bad. No.
Yeah, we're not.
No.
So anyone can see that.
Yeah.
It took me to explain that, like a minute. So they know.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah.
That's the problem. They don't.
Because it's not impacting on them. You might get a different outcome in terms of, or the same outcome in terms of the overall investigation. But for me, it's the fact that you've actually in that process. That's the stress. The fact that you are under investigation, that is the stress. And regardless of what the outcome may be, you're having to go through months, years of being investigated, it being on hold. And that stress, that trauma can lead to a decline in your mental health without a shadow of doubt, because I've seen it so many times, where actually it causes you to make more errors, in terms of your work, because you've got this overriding issue of being investigated. So, the outcome may, and the data may show that, but it's that lived experience that you go through that actually people do have suicidal thoughts.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Right, it impacts on your home life, which is not taken into consideration. Why are we being put into the system in the first place? I don't really care what the outcome is, because actually it is what it will be. What it will be. It's that experience of having gone through it.
Do you want to hear something really wild? Someone did a Freedom of Information Act to the Met asking this question. It wasn't me, by the way, DPS. You can check. They love monitoring my stuff, by the way. Someone asked, how many of the officers and staff on DPS have been subject to gross misconduct prior to starting their role? And then they asked, whilst they were in the role, 3 out of the 400 officers and staff that they had. So that leads me to believe, and you know there's going to be like 90% white, so it's going to be white people that don't understand ever being investigated. So their only understanding is, well, you know, we get to the right outcome in the end, or whatever. I'm just here to do my job. They don't understand the stress, and they probably don't care. And that's a problem, because it's the same question I asked about stop and search. People go, oh, just comply, and yeah, you should comply, but at the same time, do you understand the damage it does to someone? They'll never know. They've never been stopped and searched. So massive flaw with the Met, and I'm not saying the DPS should start investigating themselves. Okay, here's a question for you. You'll know this, or I hope you do. Who oversees the DPS?
It's done by obviously the commissioner, really, and the senior leadership team. There's no, and I think they must have a working group, so a community, you know, where actually all of their policy, practice, and whatever else comes under some sort of scrutiny. But again, it's about the accountability.
I mean, okay, just based off your answer, I don't know who the IOPC. I mean,
no, they don't know.
No, I'm just saying they're the only ones that can really hold them account in the sense that they go, policing. So they're the ones that say, "Oh, actually, you made that decision. Let's look at that again." They're the only ones that seem to be able to do that, because what I found is the DPS are like they call, you know, when people say, "Oh, you've got cowboys," they're the cowboys in the Met. They literally can do whatever they want. Let it sink in. They are allowed to get something so wrong that the victim is the suspect and the suspect is the victim, and they're allowed to just go, and just walk off.
But that is why.
There's no accountability.
And that is why the BPA were formed.
Yeah.
Back in, 1994, because we're celebrating our 30th anniversary this year. So that is why we were formed, because actually, back then, we got it. We got that they did not understand what the nuances was, what you know, around diversity, around culture, around understanding these things. We were coming from completely different backgrounds. And in terms of those investigations, in terms of attracting police officers to policing, the police didn't understand. And supporting officers and staff that were in that space was a key part of why we were set up. We're a staff support association. Yeah, we deal with officers and staff who are in that space. Officers and staff that can't really articulate what it feels like to be in that space by explaining it to a white officer, because they don't have that lived experience. The moment anyone was talking to me in my role around their experiences, you get it straight away. And one of the hardest things, I have to say, it's one of the hardest things for officers and staff to do, is to say that they feel that they've been discriminated against because of their race. Seriously, I used to sit there, I used to listen to their stories, completely get it, but they would not tell me that it was because they felt it was the fact that they were black. That's why they've been discriminated against. And I used to sit there and I used to say, I hear what you're saying, but why haven't you gone to the Federation? Why have you come to the BPA? And that's the only way you could get them to say, it's because I think it was black. You had to prize it out of them. Because we are police officers first, and we want to do our job, just like our white counterparts. But we're not allowed to do so, because we are constantly under so much scrutiny.
I'll be honest with you. I think I've got one of the better Fed reps. Because I'm forever under investigation. He's white. I'm not going to say his name. For someone that I know, I can say I know to be fair and balanced and understanding and wanting to learn. Even he struggles with understanding the issues of being black and a police officer, and that's him honestly trying to understand. Intelligent man as well. So let's sink in. There's probably a bunch that are less intelligent than him. So it ties into what you were saying. That's probably another reason why they can't go to the Fed. Because you try to explain to them, they're just like, well, I don't understand. And then, may not necessarily being deliberately malicious, they genuinely don't understand. And they don't have the capacity to understand. Or the want, or the need, whatever you want to say. I say they're ignorant. Because for me, if someone came to me with a problem I didn't understand, I'll go research it. Try and learn it.
But
better.
It's a lived experience.
I understand.
And that is what you just can't. I won't know what it's like to be a bloke. Yeah, I can't imagine, what it's like to be in a man's body and do what men do. I just can't.
But you could ask.
I can ask.
Yeah, of course.
And you can absolutely get allyship in terms of, people making the effort to understand. But what you've got to remember is London is so diverse now.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't look at a white person, you can't look at a black person and say that they are exclusively one or the other. Because they may be in a mixed ethnicity relationship. And therefore, their kids have got mixed ethnicity. So you've got that allyship there anyway, in terms of them understanding or wanting to understand. Again, being from London gives you a different perspective because it is so diverse. You can't really go anywhere in London where it isn't diverse.
Yeah, of course not.
Whereas people coming from outside of London would struggle to understand what the nuances are of being in London and being part of such a diverse community.
You're touching
of
on
people.
something here, aren't you? Touching on the fact that, I assume about the recruitment, and I'm going to get onto that. One more question about the DPS. Do you think that the allegations are Do you think allegations are weaponized against black officers more so, or at all?
Yeah, I do think. I think there's an imbalance, and the imbalance would be we, as black people, can't afford to make a mistake and it be seen as such.
Yeah,
If we make a mistake, that is a misconduct matter. It's almost like there's a deliberateness to us making that mistake. The reality for me, if a white colleague makes a mistake, then that is written off. It's understood. We do it. Actually, we're put into the misconduct system. In terms of X, you did X or whatever, and then we're put through the process. And I said, you can call it weaponized, but yeah, there's a definite imbalance around us making a mistake and our white counterparts making the same mistake.
Pretty much the definition of institutional racism, and I might read it out for Sir Mark Rowley so he understands, because there's a definition. So
Mark Rowley knows. He knows the definition. He's not, again, he's an intelligent man. You don't get the top job in the Met for being stupid.
And yes, but you're right. He does know. He does understand. I asked him straight up and down, and he gave me an interesting answer when I asked him what is he doing to protect black officers, because the DPS were basically hunting us down. And he said, don't quote me, but roughly, because I can't remember exact words, it was, we need to get rid of the bad apples, and to me, he dodged dodged answering the question properly. To me, the way it came across was, I don't care, that's not my priority.
No.
And it's like, well, wait a second, that's not right.
Yeah.
Because it should be, because if it's such a disproportionality, then you should be like, oh, what I'm doing is having a massively negative effect. And you could also link it into the recruitment. That's what I want to ask you about as well. Why is recruitment struggling? One of the reasons is, well, the main reason will always be black people don't like police as such. And I don't think that's necessarily true. They don't like the organisation of the police. The thought of the police is a good thing.
Yeah.
But the organisation that we have serving us is horrible. We'll go with horrible.
Well, I'm not disagreeing, but what I will say is that what he's basically saying to communities, just as you said, is that I don't care. I don't care because my priorities are about keeping everyone safe, secure, unless you are black and come from black community, because that's what he's saying. Everyone else is, we're there to serve and protect people of London, but only if you're white. And that's what it says to me. That's the message he's sending. So you are going to have an impact there for black communities because they don't trust you, and you are doing nothing to build trust with those communities or build their confidence in wanting to step up and join you, because your messaging is one that says, I do not care. And that's it for me.
Yeah, do you think... See, it's not that I'm defending him. I just don't like to... I'd rather speak to him first before I say what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. He's just not helping himself. Because it's so easy. All he has to come out and say, as we alluded to earlier, is, yeah, it is one of my priorities. And he doesn't necessarily have to say black community. He can say all ethnic minorities and be like, well, yeah, we want to engage, we want to fix it, we want to do this. But it's like he's not concentrating on the impact. And that's really, really sad. Because as I was saying earlier, recruitment, they're going to tell you it's up. It's not. And what you're finding is in the first 2 years, officers are just leaving anyway. So black officers are just like, nope. Whereas before, you may not have had like a gross misconduct or a misconduct in your first 2 years as such. Now you're getting it even more so, and you've got no one to help you, and you've got a lot less older experienced black officers there because they're leaving. They're like, well, don't need to do this. So it's even worse. At this time right now, it must be so difficult for the new officers coming in, because I've spoken to a few and they've emailed me, they've messaged me, and they're like, this is wild. They're like, I can't believe this organisation is run like this.
Yeah. I mean, but it's not sort of like just policing, because I've been to at least 2 Home Affairs Select Committees, yeah, in terms of policing. And I have basically highlighted the issues internally which the Met want to keep quiet about. And one of them was
which
around...
Ones? Oh, yeah, go.
Sorry?
No, I was saying which ones, you're going to tell me.
Yeah, but in particular around the fact that the Met were hemorrhaging, and that's the word I used, hemorrhaging police officers and police staff based on their own data. And, in terms of addressing that with the Commissioner, they felt it was a bit harsh in terms of that. But the data shows that literally within the first 2 years of police officers go. But again, our police staff are some of the most highly qualified, educated people in policing. But when you look at our police staff, again, they're all at the lower bandings. And police staff have a key role in policing, where actually they're not part of the senior leadership and the decision making. Again, they pick and choose who they have in that space. And because they are so qualified educationally, they will not stay. They will go and take their qualifications elsewhere and be of benefit to another organisation or institution.
I've got a theory. This is it. Tell me. Okay, just listen to it first. So, my thoughts on the reason that misconduct is weaponised against officers, because I think it was always weaponised against all officers. But what they used to do, which they found worked, was because it's like a working class job, lower working class, whatever. They weaponize the fact that you can't get another job, so they say to you, well, you're not going to get another job. It's going to be so difficult. You're going to lose your only income. Blah 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 blah. And that stress shuts up everyone else. Everyone stays quiet because they're like, oh, I can't speak out now. And I think what they're finding now is that they're understanding that a lot of the ethnic minorities that join the Metropolitan Police are actually highly educated. So most of them have got degrees, and you know how the police officer, the average police officer, hates someone with a degree. They look at you like with disdain. When I was like, I went to university, they were like, oh, why would you do that? And it's like, because I want to learn more. And because that's happening now, all the officers are just going, well, I can just get paid more, less responsibility, not going to get moaned at, treated like an adult, go home, be able to see my kids, have all these other benefits. It's like, I don't need your job. And they just leave. Yeah. So that whole line of, it's the best job in the world, it's like, to you.
Yeah.
Because that's all you can get.
Again, the new generation of, what are they, the Z generation?
The millennials,
whatever.
Yeah, I don't know.
But they now are not looking at 30 years as a career. Yeah? They're looking at basically dipping their toe in all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And that's why you can have the Police Now scheme, that actually attracts people from university once they're leaving to come in, do a couple of years. If they want to, they stay. If they don't, they say, well, thanks very much, I've dipped my toe, but I'm moving on. And that's what you've got. That's the attraction. People won't necessarily come and do 30 years like I've done 30 years. Do you know what I mean? Because of that fear of you not getting enough job, whatever. They're just like, there's so much out there. There's so much opportunity out there for them. And furthermore, if you're going to invest, 30k plus now for a degree? Yeah? If you've got that money, you want to be able to earn that money and more
exactly
coming out. And policing doesn't necessarily attract that in terms of police pay.
Yeah.
So ultimately, you'll come in, if it's something that you fancy that you want to do. If you want to stay and you're passionate about it, you'll stay. If you don't, then actually you're going to go, you know something, I'm going to move on.
I find that people are probably being I know they're being headhunted for other jobs, and they're just like, well, you can just come work and be head of security and earn 80 grand, and you're just supervising people, whereas superintendent, you got to be to make that 80 or they make to 100, I guess. But yeah,
and you're under a high level of scrutiny.
Yeah, and stress.
Yeah.
It's just it's literally not worth it. But I was going to ask you because someone told me, not you, that it was MBE, OBE?
MBE.
MBE. What does MBE stand for? I know OBE is.
It's a member of the British Empire.
How did you get that?
It was awarded for my commitment to policing and communities. So,
was that because you were the heads of the president of the national and the head of the Black Police Officers Association?
Yeah, I think that was a key thing in terms of being put forward for it. The fact that I was at such a high level and my involvement in terms of addressing the issues of disproportionality in policing, whether that be through recruitment, through ranks, progression, all of those things, and then involvement in communities around some of the issues that were impacting for them.
Did you go to Buckingham Palace to get it?
No, because I when I retired, we were just coming out of COVID.
Oh snap! Okay.
So that kind of put a scupper on it. So I actually went to Windsor.
You went with your mum, didn't you?
I did.
I saw the picture.
Yeah. I went with my mum.
So we're going to be wrapping up, but a couple more questions. Right now, what would you do to improve the BPA?
As I said, I think we probably need a good platform in terms of communication. Yeah, so we need to be able to let police officers, police staff know what we're there to do, who we are, what we stand for, and we also need to be able to reach out more effectively with our communities and ensuring that we have that crossover, that understanding, because we've talked about the fact that, the lived experience is what brings us together. So whether you are a black officer or staff, or whether you are black in the community, I will take you back to 1991 when I joined and I was posted in Brixton. I was fearful because I'm a Croydon girl, born and bred in Croydon. So Croydon at that time didn't have that diverse mix like Brixton has. And the only things I'd heard about Brixton really was in the 80s when you had a couple of riots there and all the rest of it. So going to Brixton for me was a bit of like, OMG, what is it going to be like? But I will say this, I had the best experience about going to Brixton, because I remember my first day walking on the street, like just loads of people, I was in uniform, loads of people were saying, hi, hello, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. And I didn't understand why, but actually it's the fact that I am one of them. So there's this big perception that our communities don't support us. They absolutely do. I
agree.
I've had nothing but love. If you are wrong and you're wrong, and full stop, end of. But actually, I've never had any real hostility from communities. They love to see us in this position, and it's, again, a focus for them to be able to come. So if there are issues in the community, the BPA, actually, there's a doorway in for them to come and talk, because a lot of parents, we used to do sort of like community roadshows where we'd go into communities, and a lot of parents were fearful. They might feel that their child is out of control, or, you know, there are issues that they want to discuss, but they wouldn't necessarily go to police, but they would come and have that conversation with us in the BPA, to see what we could do to help, maybe visit their school, or, you know, their youth club, and that's the sort of engagement that we would have, not necessarily looking to do anything to their child, because that's the fear factor, that if your child comes into contact with police, that actually that's a downward spiral of negativity that would end up with your child having some sort of taint against them, which actually allowed for policing or communities to speak to policing, but not in that really officious way where actually we were looking to kind of do something bad, and actually it's just about information. What can they do? How to empower their communities to be able to deal with some of the issues that they were facing. So yeah, for me, the BPA is an integral part of allowing communities to have that engagement with policing, not in necessarily an officious way, but also for us internally to be able to address and support black officers and staff. So we're dual functionality.
I agree. I think the visibility aspect is something that would help a lot, and just the communication in a sense, because there's a lot of black officers that aren't in the BPA, and they should be, and they probably would be if they communicated better. So yeah, I agree with your point. Quick fire question rounds. My words, jeez. Where are you from, first of all? Country. Where were you born, and where were your parents born?
What did they say? Was it made in the UK?
Yeah, born in the UK, made in.
Well, yeah. So Jamaican, parents both Jamaican. St. Elizabeth, my dad, and West Wallen, my mum.
Oh, because some of these questions, I know your answers. Well, I'm gonna see. Quick fire. You ready? Jollof or rice and peas?
Rice and peas.
Plantain or plantain?
Plantain.
Plantain? Oh gosh.
I say plantain actually.
Yeah,
give me some plantain. Yeah, give me some plantain. Yeah,
because plantain was more West Africans.
Yeah, plantain.
Not looking at anyone specifically, but more the West Africans.
However, I am West African. My DNA came back as like 67% of my DNA is Nigerian. So just putting that out there.
Okay, yeah, well, I'm half Nigerian too. So yeah, good stuff.
Even after so many generations, 67% of me is Nigerian.
Okay, cool. Arsenal, Manchester United.
Arsenal.
See, we can end it there. That's fine with me. That's all I wanted to hear. But yeah, it was great speaking to you, and great having you here today. Thank you very much for coming. Is there anyone else you want to talk? Anyone else you want to shout out before I go? Or anything that you're doing that you want to promote?
No, not really. Being retired, I have to say, if you make it. As I said, I felt that I survived my 30 years. If you make it to the end of that ladder, then actually there's a whole new world out there. Again, 30 years is more than my life, more than half of my life on this earth. So it will stay with you. There's no way of escaping it. But there's a whole new world of, for me, giving back to communities. I feel in a really privileged position where I can do so much more in my communities. As I said, I'm a chair, a school governor, the chair of school governors at my local school in Lewisham. Trinity, I'll give them a shout out. I'm also a trustee with St. Giles. And for me, it just allows me to do so much more in the community, which I just wouldn't have thought about doing. And yeah, I'm having a ball, really, just in terms of managing my own life and, I say, giving back, which I think is really, really key, given the privilege that I'm now, or privileged position that I'm now in.
Okay, well, thank you once again. That wraps up this side of the show, The Good, Bad, The Ugly. Guys, please like, subscribe and all that stuff. Look out for the shows that are coming up. We've got another show coming with another officer whose face you can't see, but you can hear his voice and listen to his story. And I'll be here weekly for you. So anyway, keep watching. Thanks. Peace.